This is Support is Sexy, episode 466, with Mary Shores, founder of Midstate Collection Solutions and author of the book, Conscious Communications. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And if you are a woman entrepreneur, a coach, a consultant, anyone who is out there and you're ready to step out of the shadows into the spotlight and to stop being a best kept secret, if you're ready to share your message with the world, I want you to consider podcast guesting. Podcast guesting is one of the best ways to reach people right now. I'm telling you. Now, look, I might be a little bit biased. I do love podcasting and listening to podcasts and being on podcasts. But for you, I'm telling you, think about it. It's something to consider adding to your business as a strategy for getting your message out there. Now, if you haven't done it before or you don't have those media contacts, no need to worry. I have a free guide for you on how to be an unforgettable podcast guest. You can download it at girlonpodcastgift.com. That's girlonpodcastgift.com. Great tips on how to be an unforgettable podcast guest, to find out why podcasts are doing a lot for a lot of businesses now, and how you can make sure that you get invited back again and again. girlonpodcastgift.com. Now today, I always say I'm super excited to have these ladies on the show because I am legitimately, honestly, and truly, I really am excited to have each and every guest. But I have to tell you, Mary Shores really gave me, whether she knew it or not, gave me some homework and plenty of things to think about in our conversation, talking about her business, Midstate Collection Solutions, but also her powerful book, Conscious Communications. Now, in this conversation, Mary talks about how you can bring personal development, self-awareness, and all of those things into your business. We also talk about who are the two people who are your archetype for the type of person you want to be, and why did you pick those people? That's the first bit of homework you're going to hear in here. Mary talks about that, why that's a good exercise, what that means, and what that could tell you about yourself and the stage you're in your life, and ultimately in your business. Also, the importance of sharing our stories in an empowered way. I'm all about storytelling. So this was a great part of the conversation, talking about telling our story in an empowered way as opposed to in a disempowered way. Mary also talks about how to make an impact and stand in your power, her core 4 practice, and how it will transform your business and your personal life. Love this exercise too. More homework, ding ding, your core 4 practice. What is your core 4? Mary also talks about how to be much more aware of your choices and whether they're leading you more towards connecting or disconnecting, and learning as you go and sharing as you learn. So that is just a glimpse of what is in this episode. I know you're going to enjoy it. Get your pen and paper ready. So now, without further ado, Mary Shores. So Mary, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm so happy and glad to finally meet you and be on the show talking about my favorite topic.
What's your favorite topic?
Well, personal development in general is just totally my passion.
Excellent. So our first question for you, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
I think that it was always just in me as a kid, because I can remember when I was a little girl, maybe about 9 years old, when all the other little girls in the neighborhood would play house, I would play bank.
Nice.
And I had a bank in my garage. It had those old garage sale tables.
Mm-hmm.
And I had all this fake money. We didn't have computers and printers back then. So I literally would draw it on copy paper and cut it out. And all the kids would I had my garage set up like a bank with a drive-through. So all the little kids would come through my drive-through and have accounts at my bank. So I guess I guess it's just always been there. And then I did start my first company at 24.
Right. Now, what do you think inspired you to play bank while other children, like you said, were playing house or whatever other games children were playing?
I think that it's interesting if we look at our childhood games and the things that we enjoyed doing, whatever they were, that there's just something innate in us. So even though I might not be able to give a definitive answer of say, this is the reason I wanted to play bank, but it's almost like I could say, I feel like I almost came into this life and this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Central Illinois. I was born in California, but grew up in Central Illinois.
How would you describe a young Mary growing up in Central Illinois?
Well, when I wasn't a banker,
Right. Your other job, your other life.
yeah, when I wasn't a banker, I think I was like really a happy little girl. I loved kittens, of course. I don't know any little girl that doesn't love kittens and puppies. I was also like really a hard worker. I feel like I always remember working either at the concession stand or, little odd jobs or babysitting. So I think I was just like happy, but also, I came from kind of a broken home. So I also think that I had some conflict going on, and I was probably too young to recognize it as conflict back in the day.
Broken in what ways?
Well, I was born in California, and my dad was a nuclear engineer in the Navy, and he and my mother split when I was 3. And my mother really was not stable enough to take care of me alone. So I ended up living with relatives in Central Illinois. And even though I was fed and taken care of and, all of my basic needs were met, I think that it's a trauma for a 3-year-old to be separated from the mother. That put an imprint of me that eventually grew into more of a fear of abandonment.
Did it also make you, maybe you don't remember at that age, or maybe you do, but did it also make you figure out a way to be independent in your own ways?
I think that something definitely turned me into a thriver and a survivor and very resilient. So it's interesting because one time I visited Miraval, the resort in Arizona, and they have an astrologer there, and I got an astrology reading done, and she said, "Oh, this is interesting. Your mother gave you lots of freedom." I remember my response was, "Oh, freedom." I would have called it neglect.
Right. What did she say?
I think that's just like with life. There's always more than one way to perceive something, right?
Right. Exactly. All about interpretation. Especially, it's interesting. When I talk to people who are parents, or of course, all of us are children, parents and children see a circumstance often is different too. Like someone might think, oh, they had this, very like I felt like I had a very lonely childhood, even though I was always surrounded by people, kind of feeling alone, et cetera. Whereas my parents' perception, because we've talked about it now that I'm adult, was always that, oh, we just thought you were the one that was always okay, that you didn't,
right.
So it's just exactly what you said about your own perception.
Absolutely. And, I've come to recently realize that because I have 2 children. My children are 16 and 17. And last week I was in Virginia at a meditation retreat at the Monroe Institute. And I was doing this program called Heartlines. And it's just really interesting as I'm sort of tapping into those childhood wounds and, really wanting to fill myself up with, I don't even know the right words because it kind of gets into the woo-woo, but you know what I mean? Like
I love the woo-woo. I'm all about it.
It's like getting myself into that space where I can heal from some of those things that some would say cause like certain patterns of behavior in your life as an adult. I realize I'm kind of in this sandwich, I'm the middle of a sandwich between how my parents screwed me up and how I am screwing my own kids up. And I know that sounds terrible to say, but it's just like what you said, like a lot of things that I'm doing with the best of intentions. For example, I have a son on the spectrum, and being a spectrum mom, you do a lot to try to control their diet because they have a lot of food sensitivities, or at least my son has a lot of food sensitivities, and he will break out in rashes. And so I always tried to control what he was putting into his body for good reason. But see, that's totally backfired on me. Because he never felt that freedom to be able to eat what the other kids eat.
Right. And like you said, you're going into it obviously with complete best intentions.
Absolutely.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us about your childhood and just where you are now in your life as well. But also, what do you think about how that understanding, because you do personal development work, which we're going to talk about, how that understanding or self-awareness has helped you as an entrepreneur as well, in knowing that people interpret things differently, if at all?
That's really interesting. A great question, just because by nature of what I do, it really motivates me to understand what makes people tick. And the way that I do that is by understanding neurology, neurochemistry, and psychology. For example, I realize that people are very driven by what's in their subconscious programming or neural networks. And this very much looks like almost like electrical wiring that, has connectors, and all of our all of our behavior patterns run on these programs. So if someone's triggered a certain program, then I know that their behavior is going to follow through that schematic or that neural network. But the thing is, we're the ones that control the program. So if you can get somebody and you can really understand and teach them, like, look, you're the one who plants the seed of what is going to eventually become the program or the garden that I sometimes refer to it as a garden. It's like you plant the seed and then the seed grows. But I think we also have this belief that we need to go backwards and undo our belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
When the truth is, it's a lot easier just to plant new ones.
Right. I was going to say plant new ones and move ahead. Right. As opposed to trying to go back and dig old things up.
Exactly. Because people get really fascinated with my story because, I've already shared with you that I was abandoned at age 3, but then I was returned to my mother and abandoned again at age 16. So when I was 16, I was out on my own and had a child who passed away very, very young from a traumatic brain injury, but I was still able to recover from that and start a business. So people get really fascinated right at those moments of resiliency. And one of the things that I say is who you are as a person inside is much more powerful than anything that has happened to you that would hold you back.
Right. So who would you say then you are as a person inside?
That's a good question too. Who is Mary? I am a strong connector, and I am a person that is driven by impact. And actually, I have this little exercise in I want to say it's like chapter 7 of my book called Becoming Who You Really Are. Mm-hmm. Because it's all about if you could be anybody you wanted to be, and I'll let you think about this for a moment, Elaine, you could be any archetype that you want to be, whether it's a superhero or a television character. But if you could be somebody you wanted to be, who would that be? And for me, it very much was a cross between Jessica Rabbit and Scarlett O'Hara. And that's an interesting combo, right? But right. I really loved Jessica Rabbit because she's got all this feminine power, right? She's beautiful and she's curvy and vivacious and she's a seductress, but yet she could have any man she wants, but she chose Roger Rabbit because Roger is a force for good and she could see that in him. And so that's very much like me. I can see the superpowers in other people. And show them how to bring that out. And I love to do it. And then the Scarlett thing is I love Scarlett because Scarlett is super business brilliant. She would be the old timers Shark Tank. You know what I mean?
Right. That's hilarious.
She could be on Shark Tank. But the other problem with Scarlett is she's always got all this drama.
She thrives on drama.
She really does. I mean, somebody just died, or she's got to bury the body in the backyard, or she's trying to give birth, deliver someone's baby, walk through the fire. That girl, she's going through Mordor, coming out on the other side, if you know what I mean. So what I realized was that was also a reflection of my life, that I was doing really well and I could be business brilliant, but I was always swimming through all this drama and chaos. I wanted that to change very much. And what I realized was I want to be Dorothy, because Dorothy had the power all along. Dorothy had the love and support unconditionally of the lion, the tin man, and the scarecrow.
And I love what you said about she had the power all along. That's the crux of that story, right?
It really is. And so as I ask you, did you think of someone that you're hey, this person's really cool?
Yeah, well, the two people that came to mind first, I'll say that if I gave it more thought, I'd probably come up with other people. But Oprah Winfrey, just because of her complete commitment to her vision and her impact and giving. And then Beyonce was the other person
Mm.
because of how she, at least again, as we talked about, just perception, but how she is able to really stand in her power as a woman, especially. And I don't know, of course, for sure if she blocks out outside influence as far as what people think of what she does. But I feel like in the past few years as an artist, it's very much been about the work, not about what the
Like
trend
she's
is.
so focused.
Yes, very. So two women that are very focused on their vision for what they want to create and how they want to have an impact. And I feel like in a different way, I'm in that space right now. So maybe that's just right now, but I'm going to write that in my
They're in
journal.
their power. And so this is what I
Yeah.
would say to you. And this has been true for everyone I've ever asked this question to. But whoever you chose, you are attracted to them because there's qualities that are in you that are those same qualities. And it has been true for every person. So what I'm guessing with you is you are also a person who wants to stand in their power and really blossom into your full power. And you know you want to keep your eye on the prize of that vision and impact that you want to create in the world.
Mary, you're not going to make me cry on a podcast today.
I hope not.
No, but you're so right. It's so funny. I just did an episode recently talking about, I'll make it quick, but I'm working with a digital marketing agency. They're lovely, very great. Long story short, the gentleman told me, basically had to say to me, look, I have the data here. People want to see more of you as far as, posting online and that kind of thing. Whereas I'm behind the scenes, stay in the shadow. He basically had to say, here is information showing people want to see more of you. So I did a podcast about the importance of standing in your light.
Wow, I love it.
I chose those two people. Now you've said this. I think you're going to be part of my solo episode this week, the lesson I learned this week.
Awesome. I'm
Very
so
interesting.
flattered.
Thank you. But that's true. Makes sense.
It's true for everyone. So everyone that I've asked that question to, especially when I ask men, because, there's a really big difference if a guy says to me Superman versus if they say Iron Man or if they say Bruce Wayne, because think about how different all of those characters are. Superman is kind of that behind the scenes person, but he's a guardian, whereas like Bruce Wayne and Iron Man, they're really flashy. They're more about the money and the power. So like whoever someone says, and then I say, why did you pick them? I have noticed every time that those qualities are within themselves. And that's why they resonate with that person. Just like the same reason why you would resonate with someone's book over someone else's book is because there's something in them that is in you.
Right. And that's also, I think that speaks to as well, when I know I've talked to women entrepreneurs who feel like, oh, I don't want to do whatever it is, write a book or this. They really want to, I should say, but they think, well, everyone else has already done that or that's already out there. And I sort of have the same conversation of, but your work, someone is looking for what you have to offer.
Well, and no one has the same story. So,
right.
I mean, that's the thing that we're all getting back to storytelling in our culture, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's the stories we tell, and story is so important, Elaine, because on one aspect, our stories can be very disempowering. And one of the things that I'm teaching and preaching all the time is like, don't stay disempowered because of your story. Like we really need to focus on the part of the story that is the most beautiful thing is in the moment when we figured out how to move on, because that is the true seed of empowerment.
How we came out of whatever that dip is.
However we did that, and like thin slicing on those moments, because, a lot of times, like, especially women, I'll see them go, to a party or whatever, or retreat, and they're meeting other women. And it's like within 2 seconds, they feel compelled to share their tragic stories. But every time we tell that tragedy, we're reinforcing that pattern in our neural network in our subconscious. And so when I meet women at a party, I'm not trying to talk to them about my tragic disempowerment. No, I'm talking to them about like, how have I triumphed in life? I mean, we all know what Oprah's history is, but we never see her focused on it. We all know, same with like Maya Angelou and so many other people, that their tragedies are not what define them in life. They might be, but your tragedies and your stories, they definitely make you who you are because they build character. But if we allow ourselves to become victims from part of our story, that is where the disempowerment lies. And so, I just totally get the power of story, but I think that we want to be really careful because the story we tell ourselves about ourselves will become our identity.
So tell us then the part of your story that is about you being the youngest person in the world to own a collections agency. Is that right? In 1999?
I was 24.
24.
And, I I still have that business today. I'm actually sitting in my office right now, and I have 25 employees, and we have done some amazing things with this business. Like I told you, I always wanted to be a business person. So even when I was a kid and when I was in my young 20s, I did get an opportunity to start this business because a relative was like going out. So I saw my moment of entry. And at that point, I didn't really care what kind of business it was. I just wanted to be in business. And this is important because I'm going to talk about purpose here in a little bit and how you can really step into your purpose. Because years later, I wanted to take a different kind of path in life, a more personal growth, spiritual growth and development path. And I was really going through this crisis of meaning and this existential crisis about how am I going to go on this spiritual path if I'm a debt collector, because we all know that the debt collector or the tax collector in the Bible was not a popular dude.
Mm-hmm.
And the collection industry as a whole is looked upon so negatively because people don't really associate having a positive experience with the debt collector. And this is a big problem for me. But I was so fortunate because years earlier, I had already made it my mission that I wanted people to feel good about paying a debt, because having a debt is a psychological burden, and it's a burden that gets in between people and living the life of their dream. And I just thought I had one of my biggest aha moments in life when one day I looked at the phone and I thought, I just want the next person who calls to be happier at the end of the call than they were at the beginning. And this led me down a path to really understanding like the nervous system and the power of words, and really becoming a huge fan of Louise Hay, which Hay House eventually published my book. But it really planted a giant seed in me that was destined to change the whole rest of my life. And so what I learned was that sometimes we get too wrapped up in what our jobs are. And right now, especially, there's this huge pressure to make an impact, like you were talking about. But people can feel lost as to how to do that, or how can they do that if they're stuck in this corporate job? When the truth is that making your impact and being in the power of your purpose is as simple as just focusing on developing your own skills, gifts, and talents that you were born with. So what I was supposed to do was develop that little 9-year-old banker.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about when you decided that the moment, I should say, when you said you looked at the phone and wanted the person to be happier by the end of the time you had your conversation, how did that shift things? Were you in your company at that time, or this was pre having your company?
This was probably around 2005.
How did that shift things for how you manage the business moving forward?
Everything. It changed everything. And I'll tell you why. Because prior to that, I had already wanted to take a different approach than the other agencies. I mean, mostly because I wanted to sleep at night. I didn't want a negative environment for my office. So we were taking a sales approach prior to this, because I thought, well, I'll sell people on the idea of paying their debt. I didn't want to use threats and intimidation, which is what all the other collectors do. And here's the thing. You might think a sales approach would work, but it didn't. Because if it worked, wouldn't all the collectors do that?
Mm-hmm.
The reason it didn't work is because it didn't address the real issue, which is the feeling of shame and unworthiness that people have associated when they have a debt.
Right.
I mean, have you ever felt good about owing somebody money?
Nope.
No. I mean, not unless you were on like a solid structured payment plan and it was all worked out ahead of time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the difference was when I was selling them on the idea of paying the debt, I was still trying to get the money. Whereas when the goal became happiness, and I actually sat down with my staff and I said, your job no longer is to collect this money. It is to make the person happy. And I had no idea what was going to happen, right? I mean, I thought, surely I'm nuts for doing this. But the result was our money increased 34% within a year.
And do you think it was connected definitely to how you are making people feel about the, for lack of a better word, transaction, or just resolving this problem, helping them resolve a problem, as opposed to, like you said, that feeling of shame that's already there?
Absolutely. And I wouldn't have understood that at the time because, you know, our brains have this really cool feature called the reticular activating system. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Okay. So in the reticular activating system, it's like you give your brain a command. In this case, the command was, I want the person to be happier at the end of the call. And then somehow your brain sort of figures out how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I didn't understand anything at the time, back in 2005, what was happening, the result was, number one, that it worked. And number two, that it became the foundation of the entire second half of my life. everything that I've done since that moment has been different. And so when you say, did it change the way we ran the business? Not only did it change the way we ran the business, but it changed all of us internally. It changed who we are as people. And so I created this communication strategy that I write about a lot in the book. The book is called Conscious Communications, but this strategy back in the day was calling Words That Work. I started training on this in healthcare, in IT. I trained on it at small business workshops at the community college. And it was really just all about how you communicate with people to always be activating things that make them feel good instead of triggering them. Because like, if I told you you have to call the cable company tomorrow, what would you react with?
Sigh and roll my eyes because I don't want to deal with them.
Right. And you know why you would do that is because you have evidence in your past from every other time you've had to call a cable company that your body remembers that.
Right.
See, our bodies are like libraries. They remember everything that's ever happened to us, right? So just by me mentioning, oh, Elaine, I want you to call the cable company tomorrow, you sigh because you know that's going to be a frustrating experience. Well, when people know ahead of time that they're going to be frustrated before they even pick up the telephone to call you, then what's happening inside their bodies is they're activating their fight or flight, which means that from a neurochemistry standpoint, they're starting to create adrenaline, cortisol, maybe norepinephrine. I can never remember that one. But all these, let's just say, aggressive, nasty chemical soup of nastiness. Right? But then we're going through our day. We're doing this all day because things are triggering us all day, every day. The cars honking the horn, the constant notifications going off your phone, Facebook, phone calls, meetings. It's just never ending. And then you get to the end of the day and you don't have anything to flush out all those chemicals. So inside your body, it becomes like a toxic soup of stress. And over weeks and months and years, this manifests into like a serious bad mood.
Or
and
sometimes illness.
Yes, illness. And so you see how like little did I know when I created this little goal, I want the next person to be happier at the end of the call. When I say that this changed all of our lives, I had an employee come in here on Saturday and she's like, Mary, I've been waiting for the right time to tell you this, but I've been doing everything in your book and I've been off of all of my medications for 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, all of them. And she was on stuff for like, anxiety, depression. She had tears in her eyes telling me this. And she's like, I've been really wanting to tell you. And then she's like, my husband just started his own business. And when I asked him like why he started his own business, she explained to me that he went on and on and on. It was like, well, I've been following Mary and I've just been like really paying attention to all the things that Mary's doing. And so like, this is what I mean. Like my job kind of felt in conflict of what I wanted my personal goals to be, which was that, going back that wanting to take a spiritual path. But can you see how when I just stepped into that power, because when you said, who am I as a person? And I'm like, I'm somebody who can really connect the dots. When I really figured all this out, I created this communication strategy that then turned into the most unique personal development program that you will ever get your hands on. And I can really see the ripple effect of how easily lives can be changed, but not necessarily in the way that we've been taught.
Right. Now let's talk about conscious communications a little bit. And about one of the things you mentioned in the book is the subconscious default mode. So what is that and how does that affect us? Is that sort of what you've been mentioning, this way of, well, I won't guess what it is. I'll let you tell us what it is.
I had an interesting thing happen to me a couple weeks ago that I think explains it just a little bit. Okay. I was getting a massage and afterwards I walked into the bathroom and I turned the light on and I thought to myself, there's a window in here. It's not dark. Why did I turn the light on? I realized that I turned the light on because 99% of the time when I walk into a bathroom, it's dark because there's not usually windows. And so it's an automatic process to just turn that light on, right? But I didn't need to turn the light on. So why did I do it? Is because there's a program in my subconscious that is running automatically that says turn that light on. Or we all know the experience of when we drive to work or we drive to somewhere that we drive every day and we like don't even remember driving there.
Right. Or if you're meant to make a different turn and do something in between, but you end up going straight there because you're on autopilot.
Or like my dentist's office, they moved their office like 2 years ago. I still drive to the wrong office half the time.
God.
right? So
Yeah.
these are simple things and we all experience them. But what if every time you take that phone call from your mother, you flip out, or your spouse or your friend, or a certain post you see on Facebook, and you just flip out inside? It's kind of the same thing. You're still running a reaction to a program triggered by an event. And we're doing this over and over and over, where it becomes this rote behavior that we're just repeating all the time, and we're constantly reinforcing it. But if you can learn to step out of that for just a moment and take a step in a new direction, you will start to make changes really, really fast. Because like, I feel like new thought leaders, I don't know what you call people like me, but I hear new thought leaders, I hear coaches, I hear all kinds of words. But I think they use a lot of words that don't make any sense. Somebody talking to me the other day about getting out of your own way. And I was like, what does that mean? And she couldn't tell me. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting that you don't even know what it means. I haven't yet had one person tell me what it means, or get out of my head and into my heart, or it's like they say all these things, but what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you can learn an actual practical, tangible thing, that's where you can make change. So when you can understand, like, if you want to get into leadership, leadership is all about teaching other people how they can best make this impact in the world. And then it doesn't have to be tomorrow, because our journey here is like a soul journey. It's not an instant transformation. It's something that is meant to unfold over a lifetime. And like, my own journey has not always been a graceful one, but I have learned so much, and I'm an open book, and I can really teach people these practices. So when we get into like subconscious programming, this is really coming from all of the things that have happened to us in our lives that have caused us to have certain effect reactions. And then stepping back and like really looking at these from a prospect of being able to change them, but understanding it's not as simple as just reading a book. Like, we talked about those chemicals, those stress chemicals. Well, we have to dial that back, and we have to learn how to remove the stress chemicals. Well, what if just as an experiment, you for 1 week decided to make decisions solely based on how much stress it will cause or alleviate?
Yes, I love that. I'm going to do that as a challenge.
You should do that, because let me tell you something. It really changes your thought process, because we did this a year ago. We said, we're going to make decisions based on how much stress it will either cause or alleviate. And what we found was there was a lot of things we started saying no to.
Mm-hmm. That's what I imagined when you said it. That was the first thing that came to mind. I'd probably say more to a lot more things.
We said things that were in alignment. We said no to things that were not in alignment. And that brings me to talking about like what happened. So we did that for like a year. And then at the beginning of this year, I developed what I call my core four. And the core four is, especially like as an entrepreneur, do you ever feel pulled in so many different directions that you just like don't want to do anything?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. Me too, especially with like the book coming out in August, and it's like everything started to speed up and there's opportunities. It seems like you're just drowning in a sea of opportunities, which should be a good thing, right? But it's not a good thing if it's not the things that are on your path. And what I realized was I needed to pick 4 core areas of my business that I wanted to focus on. And then what you do is you like run all of your decisions, and anything that you're doing, all of your energy has to be related to those core 4. And if they're not related to those core 4, then you step back and you raise a yellow flag. And it has literally transformed everything in my brand and in my business and even my personal life. And I can give you like a small example of that, because when the book got ready to come out, some of my staff, they really wanted me to hire this person that was like cooks in-home meals
In order to save you time?
Yeah. And I didn't want to do it because I felt like it was super indulgent. Like it was too much of a luxury that what I should be doing. And so I said no to it. And then I was really stressing out because I'm super anal about wanting to make a home cooked meal for my kids every night. And what started happening was I started picking up takeout, and I started like hitting that Chinese restaurant on the way home from work, or calling the local bar and grill down the street and ordering burgers and fries. And then I started to gain some weight because, now I'm making choices that are different. And we created the core 4, and I picked 4 things for my personal life that I'm going to focus on. One of them was healing. And then as soon as I relooked at that decision, I immediately said yes to the in-home food service because it was just a total match, because I could have this person cook the whole 30 meal program that I wanted to go on. And it was all done for me. I didn't even have to grocery shop anymore. And the thing that I was worried about with it being indulgent, it was only $450 a week for myself and my kids, her cooking at our house and buying all the groceries. That's a pretty good deal.
Right. And you're getting freshly made food as opposed to things from the fast food place. And there's so many other reasons why it was a good move for you.
Yes. And it eliminated all of that stress of all of that meal planning that I was going through. And so the truth is, I probably actually saved money because I was throwing food away because I wasn't having the time to cook it.
Right. For the core 4, that's a great example. So for anyone who's listening and thinking about, okay, I want to create my core 4. Well, is it goal oriented or is it more so bigger vision kind of thing of what your core 4 values are? Or how should we think about the practice when we're coming up with our core 4?
Yeah, that's the perfect starting place. So if I were to ask you, Elaine, where do you want to be in 2 years with your career and your life? And I don't expect you to have an answer off the top of your head, but maybe just tell me one thing.
In 2 years, I'm going to travel the world starting in July for a year. So I want to have created a podcast unlike any other for women entrepreneurs that gives narrative storytelling of women entrepreneurs around the world. I don't know if that's too specific.
So there's going to be some things you're going to need to arrange in your life in order to, it sounds like this is around the corner. So this is already a done deal for you.
Mm-hmm. The trip is creating the podcast how I want is just a vision right now.
Okay. So this is perfect. So what you do for the core 4 is you start with that overall vision. Mm-hmm. But the core, the way it's just slightly different is the core 4 is not a goal, it's a focus. And that's only a slightly different, subtle difference. I'll share with you mine. For my business this year, for the collection agency, the core 4 are using our branding. So getting everything branded, because last year we invested in a lot of branding. It's increasing our sales. It's industry involvement, and it's creating custom programs. So those are 4 things, right? Mm-hmm. And those 4 things all support an overall goal, which is, I don't remember it specifically, but something to do with company growth and expansion. Mm-hmm. So for you would take now 4 things that you really need to be focused on in order to live this 1 year of travel.
Okay, I see. So starting with the umbrella vision, the ultimate thing that you want to do.
You get into 4 quadrants.
Right.
You might think about things like your wellness, because you're going to be on the road.
Right.
Relationships. What are your relationships going to look like while you're traveling? What are the things that you want? I would imagine, I'm just making this stuff up, Elaine, but I would imagine that during this year of travel, you're going to make some amazing connections.
It's on the list, Mary. Making connections with other, because it's traveling with a big group of, about 30 or 40 or so other entrepreneurs from around the world. So connections and learning from people is a big part of it.
Education. Perfect. So boom. So right here, right away, we have relationships as one of these core 4. And then another one is that learning. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then what do you think might be another one?
This is good. What would be another one? Growing my business too.
Okay. So you want growth. Financial growth. And then what, do you have a 4th one?
What would be the 4th? Well, wellness, you said, was another one.
But did that resonate with you? Because that's what I said, doesn't it?
No, it did. Wellness from personal health perspective, but I think wellness for me is from a personal growth perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
That makes
that's
sense.
How I look at it too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said that.
Okay, so now you've got 4 things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's just looking at these 4 things and understanding that this is where your energy needs to be going. And then if you find yourself your energy being pulled out away from that, then you need to raise that yellow flag. So here would be an example. Like my business development coordinator, she was wanting to learn a lot of administrative tasks in this last 6 months. And this is one of the things that it raised the yellow flag, because her learning administrative tasks is not within that core 4, because it doesn't support sales. It doesn't support custom trainings, industry involvement, or branding. So I had to say no to that. So for you, I don't know what your relationship situation is, but maybe that's not what's in the cards right now.
Right. One of the reasons I'm
Because
not doing that right now.
Right, because that would end up being a distraction. So it's kind of like you're using this core four as a way of blocking out the distractions, just like what you said about Beyonce.
Exactly.
So that's why I say the core four is more of a focus than a goal, because the goal is the other thing. The core four is how you're going to focus to get you there. That's how people, end up developing ultra clarity about what they want. And believe me, that empowers you. And everything that you create in life, everything you manifest from a place of empowerment is going to be stronger, faster, more powerful, and last longer. Imagine the opposite of that. Like, imagine what you manifest from a place of disempowerment.
Right.
Chaos, uncertainty,
Chaos, confusion, exactly.
stress,
Insecurity.
sleepless nights. Yes, all of that. So it's like, how do you flip that? And we're the ones in control. See, we're the ones that have the power to flip it from disempowerment. And by the way, you can be a very successful disempowered person. I was that person. And what does your life look like when you're a disempowered, successful person? Scarlett O'Hara. Right? So if you're sitting at the top of your empire and you're really successful, but your life is lacking meaning and you're stressed out from the moment you wake up and you snap on everybody, you're manifesting from disempowerment.
Is that what caused you to decide to really focus on this part of your work and what you're creating here is outside of, or well, it's sort of aligned with the collections business, but really diving into the personal development work, your own experience of deciding that something needed to change?
I would say that it was more of a result of what came out of that work and not the cause of it. So I would say it was the result, not the cause. Like, because, this is my journey that I'm going on as well. And I'm still learning things. I'm still always investing in myself to figure out what is that next deeper layer of learning. Because when I very first started going on this type of journey, like, I guess it's almost 15 years ago now, it's kind of like you graduate certain things. Like I did the whole secret, the law of attraction, you just kind of graduate and you go to the next thing. And you just get deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I feel like where I'm at now is a result of all of that other stuff.
I always say it's like learning as you go and sharing as you learn.
That's
what I say.
absolutely right.
Right. And so I'm like, I don't know everything, but here's what I know from my experience.
One of the things that I also know is that there's so many ways. There's so many paths. It's not one right way. And all of the failures and the mistakes that you might be going through now, they have a deeper purpose. If you can pay attention to that and allow it to, like, what if you say, what if I do the opposite? And what would that look like? I mean, even that kind of question right there can immediately empower you.
Yes, I love it. Excellent. Oh, I have so much homework, Mary. This is so good. I love it. So what would you say that entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
In the beginning, it taught me how powerful I can be. And now as I'm getting into more midlife, I'm also realizing that sometimes it teaches you to get way into your masculine. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on this path now. I'm kind of calling it unraveled and undriven. It's sort of like I'm really great at creating things. I want to step back and I want to teach myself now how to be the, what do you call it? Like the symphony person that's the conductor.
Yes, conductor. I was doing the hand movement.
Yeah. But what it's taught me is that it's taught me a lot of courage, persistence, and resilience. It's also taught me that I really can have, do, or be anything I want. And I can do that in a way without sacrificing my own personal development as a result. And I think that there's been times that I was sacrificing my own personal development, but I can do it while feeding my own personal development.
I want to squeeze in one more question for you. I'm being conscious of your time, of course, but for people thinking about how to have this personal development or personal awareness be a part of their business's culture, what do you advise people either make sure to do, other than read your book, of course, but make sure to do in order to do that? Because sometimes I think some of us think that, well, especially when we talk about masculine and feminine energy, things have to be separate. Like, this is my business, and then this is the part of me that is the personal development or quote unquote woo side, when it really can coexist if you know how to bring it together. And your business doesn't have to be like a yoga practice for it to be like, you know what I mean? It sounds like you've figured out how to blend this into part of the culture of your business. What has been key?
Well, I mean, part of it is like being a master strategist. I mean, I think that following your gut is so very important, but also, doing your homework. We can't like tape pictures of checks on our wall like a woo-woo, whatever, and think that that's going to be what happens. We have to actually invest and do the work. I think that I'm always telling people that everything you say, everything you do, every word you speak, every action you take, every choice you make, and every thin sliced moment of life is either creating a deeper connection or driving a disconnection. And so if we just start right there and understand that everything, every choice is either connecting you or disconnecting you, then you start looking around at the daily choices you're making and saying, okay, doing this, is it connecting me or disconnecting me? Having this meeting with this employee, is it necessary? Is it connecting me or disconnecting me? Is this goal, is this thing we're working on, is this project connecting me or disconnecting me? I call it cleanse or clog in the book, but that would be a great way to really check in. And as an entrepreneur, understand like that's not a masculine or a feminine practice. That's just like a great, very easy 2-second way to say, wait a second, what am I doing? Where is this taking me?
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So in closing, Mary, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Oh, only one person?
I know.
I would love to say my entire staff, but you're not allowing me to do that.
You can think of them as one. Okay, we'll let you slide.
You're so sweet. My staff really is my scarecrow, my tin man, and my cowardly lion. They support me. They believe in me through thick and thin. And I've said many, many times, like, I have the greatest workforce on earth. And I don't have that because I have like somehow been this perfect leader who makes great decisions. I don't have this great workforce that's behind me because I've always been the nicest person. I have this workforce because my business is built on a mission. And when you have a business that is built on a mission, people will help you. They will support you. They will be there for you.
How many people do you have on your team at this point?
I typically have between 20 and 25.
That's a beautiful
And
thing.
most of them have been here more than 10 years.
That's a sign too of your business as well. Excellent.
Thank
Now,
you.
how can we support you? Tell everyone. I'll have links, of course, to everything, but tell everyone so they can hear your website, how to get your book, any social media, whatever you want us to know.
I am so excited because you are actually the very first show that I am giving away what I'm calling the Daily Desires bundle. And so I know we gave you a link, so please make sure it's posted. What the listeners will get is what I call the Daily Desires Diary. And this is a daily ritual where you are going to list another challenge for you today, Elaine.
Yes.
You're going to list on this journal page 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things you're proud of in the day. So you're like your 3 proudest moments, and 3 things you desire. And you're going to do this every single day. And I guarantee you, if you do this for 45 days, you're going to want to get in touch with me and tell me what's happened, because it's simple, it's fun, and it's transformative. And in addition to that, we're also giving all of your listeners a free, the first chapter of the book, Conscious Communication, so they can really check it out and see if this is the book for them.
Excellent. And I have those links. I'll make sure everybody that we have the links there. You'll go to Mary's show notes page, which I'll tell you after this episode. So make sure you listen so you can get all of that. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. We all have tons of homework, which I'm going to make sure is in there, but this is great too. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the best way to find me personally is either on LinkedIn, because since you got entrepreneurs, I'd love any of you to send me a request on LinkedIn. The name is Mary Shores, Shores, or you can join my Facebook group at Fearless Ambition. We'd love to have you.
Excellent. Mary, thank you. This was, truly enlightening. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your story, as we talked about, very important, but also just your insight on conscious communications, your book, and everything that you're doing to build a business that really has heart.
Thank you, Elaine. I really enjoyed meeting you today.
Absolutely. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
I think that my parting piece of advice is going to be choosing a daily practice that you can stick with and really making it a part of your life, whether that's gratitude, whether it's yoga, whether it's eating a bowl of Cheerios, but just create a daily practice.
I love it. Mary, thank you. Hold on just a second. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mary. To find out more about her, to get links to find out about her book, and to get that first chapter of her book and the Daily Desires Diary, all that good stuff that she has for us, make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com, go to that search icon at the top, and just type in Mary, Mary. Her show notes page will pop up with all of the links and the resources and the ways to get in touch with her. supportisexypodcast.com and just search Mary. Now, make sure that you and I are connected on new platform I'm talking about. Well, not new to you, but new that I'm focused on. LinkedIn. Let's make sure we're connected on LinkedIn. If you reach out to me there, just tell me you heard about this on the Support is Sexy podcast. I want to make sure I'm doing more on LinkedIn. I have a lot of ideas, been hearing a lot of great things about it, so I'm excited about connecting with you all there. Everywhere, I'm at Elaine Fluker, at Support is Sexy. Super easy to find me. Now, you know I appreciate you being here. I always say it wouldn't be the same without you. Now, until we chat again, always remember that you deserve support. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.